employee and a student, I actually thought that sleeping was a disorder, so that's why I kind of picked that one. Apparently I was a little wrong. So I want to go ahead and pick this one out and see what's normal. You know, I mean, what is normal, and when I say normal, I mean, we discovered this class is not really a whole lot that is normal, but what's pretty much expected versus what considers a disorder. So first of all, I wanted to go into, you know, what basically makes normal sleep. And we have our rituals, thank you, that we have, that is sometimes just brushing our teeth, reading a book, having a snack, cookies and milk, or whatnot, taking a bath before we actually go ahead and actually sleep. And sleep is when the body is unproductive, but it's the brain activity and the heart rate is still working. So it's not like hibernation or like a coma. It's actually we're busy doing things. Our mind is busy working. And as we are sleeping, our brainwave activity, our heart rate, our body temperature, and other psychological functions are still active. And so pretty much the process of sleep starts with thermoregulation. And what that is pretty much when you're starting to fall asleep, that's when you're kind of getting into the zone, should I say. How many times have you went to lay down and watch TV and fallen asleep and you're freezing? You have to get yourself a blanket. I mean, you're just up working, I'm sure, you know, working, cleaning the house, doing this and that, and all of a sudden just like, I'm freezing. Well, that's all part of thermoregulation. And what it is it's just before the body is falling asleep, it starts to lose heat to induce the sleep. The body temperature reduces and helps us to use less energy since we're not moving around and we're not creating that natural movement and momentum. What generally happens as well is when we're awake, breathing is irregular due to speech, due to presentations, due to exercise, due to normal functions as we live. And when we sleep, breathing actually is decreased and becomes more regular, and our blood pressure and our heart rate are also lower. But the one thing that is increasing is hormone, the growth hormone. And if any of you have had parents or whatnot, or have had kids, then a lot of times the doctors say that sleep when they're younger is good. The more they sleep, the more they grow, because the growth hormone that's already in them that is actually being more active as they are sleeping. And sleep is just as important to you as health and exercise, as foods and such. It's without a proper balance that you could actually suffer different deficiencies and diseases. And I put a chart up here, pretty much what is expected for that younger age group. There's not really a set amount that we have to have. Just like when we're exercising or when we're drinking water, you should drink 8 glasses a day. Well, they didn't actually give an ounce, and so my glass might be a little bit smaller than yours. So there's not actually a set amount, but generally goes from newborns having about 12 to 18 hours of sleep. Adults would have about maybe 7.5 to 9 hours of sleep, and that'd be nice. And as the previous slide says, that also we can function on less sleep than that, but it's not a regular. It shouldn't be regular because it can do damage to your body, like the previous slide said. As far as fatigue, lethargy, moodiness, irritability, lack of creativity. It's amazing. Problem-solving skills, concentration, or memory problems. I'd like to be so creative, and usually I'm more creative when I'm asleep. Or so I hear, anyways. But also, it can also affect your physical body weight gain and your immune system, and it can also cause more frequent colds and infections. And also, the risk of diabetes and heart problems can also increase without proper amount of sleep. So there's 2 different types of sleep. There's REM and non-REM. REM is rapid eye movement. That's pretty much the dreaming state. And then there's non-REM, which is actually 4 different stages in that. So it goes through 4 different cycles As it goes to non-REM is pretty much when your alpha waves are more rapid and low amplitude, and your brain waves are linked to feelings of relaxation. This is what helps you go to sleep. Just laying in your bed, just feeling the pillow surrounding you or your mattress, and what, as your body starts to relax, that's just the first stage that's going into. And then as you're starting to fall asleep, then your brain waves are slowing down and enter theta pattern, and which is the lighter stage of sleep. And as it continues on, the hypnagogic state, which is pretty much entering more of the deeper sleep, that's when we start to experience the brief but dreamlike images. And you don't have to raise your hands, and I'm not going to pretend that this has never happened to me in my entire life, but sitting at your desk or doing something, and all of a sudden you're paying attention, or as I'm speaking, and all of a sudden you just close your eyes for 2 seconds, and in that 2 seconds, a week long just passed in your dreams. And that's just the hypnagogic state, where basically it's just beginning to just get into the mode of sleep. As you see on this slide here, that there's the 4 stages of the non-REM, and then the 5th stage that completes it, that is the REM sleep. Now, number 4, right before you hit the REM, though, that's the heaviest part. That's the deepest part of your sleep, and that's pretty much when, if you're woken up, which I'll explain in just a minute, like all of a sudden just woken up out of a deep sleep, like, where am I? You know, that's pretty much when you're already in stage 4 of the non-REM, right before you go to the REM sleep. So, at that final stage, that's when our brain is producing the rapid low amplitude brain waves, and it's as it starts to go into the the non-REM is similar to the hypnagogic, or it's also called the paradoxal sleep. And that has the patterns that suggest the level of arousal and the dreaming. And that's when you have the most memorable dreams that you have. And it's crazy because I thought I dreamt the whole entire night. I only probably dreamt like 20 minutes. There's a lot that happens in 20 minutes, I will tell you that. So as we have gone through there, finally find out what sleep is, or what sleep is about. Some of the disorders. Now there's, as I was looking into this, there is a lot of disorders, and because we have a time limit of at least before midnight, I wanted to go ahead and just take a few of them, knock over all of them. So I just picked some of the more prominent examples. Insomnia, that is actually the most common complaint of sleeping disorders, which people, you guys have probably heard insomnia is pretty much when the brain is on the wrong card, is when the brain is pretty much active, and it has the inability to fall asleep or stay asleep. Or it can also, which I did not realize, it can also signify waking up without feeling restored or refreshed. So some of us may have insomnia and not even realize it. It's not just not being able to sleep, but there's other things involved in that. That was pretty new for me. I'm like, I must have insomnia quite a bit. And about over half of our insomnia is caused by stress or worry, positive or negative. As I mentioned earlier, I'm headed to go to a trip and go to Disney World, and I also remember that even as a child, that when we were going to be taking a trip, I could not sleep. It's like you're planning the whole day through, days in advance, and you're planning, it's like, tomorrow I get to go. Like, I have to wake up at 5 in the morning, and it's 7, or it's 3. Why can I not sleep? I only had 2 hours, but I'm so excited. That is a stress, and it's a good stress, but it's still a stress that is causing your lack of sleep. And also, the loss of loved one, different things in your relationship, pretty much that keeps your brain occupied when you're not able to go ahead and get into that sleep. And another thing that is also with insomnia is when your circadian cycle is not connected to the 24, or is not connected to your biological clock, is not connected to the circadian cycle. And pretty much, I did not realize this either, but the circadian cycle, that's pretty much what the Earth on rotation is with the 24-hour Earth rotation, your body is actually in line with that. And so if your body is not actually in line with the circadian cycle, you may not get a lot of sleep. I'll give an example. My husband, he is a night owl. He cannot sleep at night, and it drives me up a wall all night, and he does not know where the volume button is either. So his circadian cycle is completely different than mine, hence I only get 2 hours of sleep a night. I have insomnia because of that, because of his circadian cycle. But pretty much it's how your body is in tune with what's going on around you, your surroundings and gravity and so on. But you can actually go ahead and try to change that by just doing a little bit of the decreasing and changing that just a little bit here and there, which I'll try to help out with that as well. As long as the other party is wanting to listen and wanting to make these changes. So some of the changes that can help the insomnia is the change of time or diet, because that way, I mean, if you have just digested food, you're still up and awake. Activities, might want to do something a little bit more relaxing and not watch I Know What You Did for Summer, or I Know What You Did Last Summer right before you go to bed. You might not want to guzzle down a bunch of Quick Trip Cokes. Just something relaxing to put yourself in that state. The next one I was going to talk about is narcolepsy. And this is a chronic disorder of the central nervous system that's characterized by the brain's inability to control the sleep cycles. It's actually caused by a lack of a brain transmitter called hypocretin, which is a chemical that the neurons produce to communicate with one another and also regulate the biological process. A lot of times that people just, they don't have that function, that chemical, to basically keep their brain communicating, and so it just kind of zones out and falls asleep. And a lot of times is when you're actually doing something like working or reading or exercising or anything along those lines. And so a lot of times when people do have narcolepsy, if it's that extreme, then they do need help getting that taken care of. But there's not really a cure for it. However, antidepressants and antihistamines or antihistamine-like stimulants can help with the system, with the symptoms of that. Sleep apnea is also a more common disorder that's come about as well. And pretty much sleep apnea it's not as much of a chemical disorder as much of a gravity disorder, if you will. But when you're sleeping, if you're breathing, you're constantly breathing, and if you have blockage or gravity pulls your neck down or something, there's different causes of that. But if it's pulling your neck down and you're not able to breathe, the air is blocked, and then that is what causes you to not breathe. I know that, giving another example, that when my husband was overweight, it scared me at night because and then he just had to start breathing again. And then he just like sound like he was choking or something along those lines. And it was pretty scary. And you don't know that you're doing it because you're sleeping and you're unconscious. But then you start breathing again, and I've noticed actually that after he started losing a lot of weight, I could hear him sleeping instead of listening for that, is he going to inhale? So it's a little bit scary in that. Basically, when pauses while breathing or take shallow breaths while sleeping, you can pause, or the pause in that can last a few seconds up to a few minutes, and which is true, and which is really scary sometimes. Also, it can occur up to about 30 times or more an hour. When breathing does resume, you hear that choking sound or that snort, something. Just basically, it's them trying to gasp for air because the brain is not getting air. The oxygen is not getting to the brain, so the body's crying out, please get some air in me. It's also known as Ekbom syndrome, and which also features distressing. Oh no, sorry, wrong side. I got ahead of myself. We're behind myself. And this little utensil that I did go ahead and put up here, that is what a lot of times what people have been using to cure that, because it helps basically force the air into them, and so that way it can keep their throat open more, so that way that they can breathe in. They don't have to worry about those sudden wake ups in the middle of the night. Restless leg syndrome, aka Ekbom syndrome. And this is a neurological disorder which features a distressing, irresistible, or need to move the legs. And I know sometimes sitting down in these seats for a long time is like, it's going to stretch my legs out. Well, it's kind of like that, but intensify that by like 100. There's not really a way that they can get comfortable. Basically, the more that they move their legs, the more that they get relief. And it usually starts during the day, but it does get a little bit worse during the evening. They do have some cures for this. A lot of times, like I was mentioning, that if you're more comfortable, it's a little bit more painful when you're more comfortable. So a lot of people like to lay on the floor or get the stick beds. Also getting compression socks or ace bandages, wrap your legs up. Exercise and stretching. Heat and cold, they also do help. Also, you can get prescriptions like sleeping pills, antihistamines, anti-nausea, calcium channel blockers, antidepressants, and antipsychotics also do help. This one here kind of startled me a little bit, okay? This is called REM behavior disorder. During REM phase, the body has like a paralysis. This is more of a, and I do apologize, I'm mixed up here. This is more of a parasomnia. Parasomnia is a strange or dangerous event. It's when strange or dangerous events occur. And this one here is the one that startled me the most, so I wanted to do a separate one on this instead of bulking it all with the other ones. But this one here is basically, remember earlier when I was mentioning that there's the 4 stages? Well, in the very last stage, which is the most deep sleep that one can be in, most everybody's body is basically paralyzed, so to speak. You don't move, you're having these dreams up in your head and it's all going on up there, but sometimes people actually do have those dreams where they do come to life. There's been many cases where people do come act out in different ways. They end up yelling, screaming, they end up hitting things, shouting, and there's actually, the bottom point on that is actually true and correct. There's actually a case, there's actually several cases, but the one in particular that kind of caught my attention, and no, it's not an excuse, so please do not think that at all.
I'm sleeping.
No, well, no, you'll know why I said that when I tell you. But Kenneth James Park of Ontario, actually, he killed his mother-in-law while he was asleep. And but the thing is I know that's why I said I didn't do this one on purpose. But no, what it was is that they were actually going to be going to see them like the next day, and they went to sleep. And he got up. They live about 15 minutes. Okay, but they live about 15 minutes away from them. He actually got in the car, went to their house, and apparently his mother-in-law thought it was an intruder, so she took a knife out and he ended up stabbing her and killing her and wounding her father-in-law. But the thing that's so remarkable about all of this is that the wife, first of all, the husband, Kenneth, he actually had a really good relationship with his in-laws. So nobody would ever even believe that he would do it on purpose. His wife stood by him. Even though he just killed her mother, she stood by him because she knew that it was a disorder. She knew that he did not do it consciously. And his father-in-law, that he just killed his wife, he bailed him out of jail. because they knew how serious it was of a disorder, and it was not on purpose at all. So different things can actually cause this or onset this, or other related conditions, degenerative, neurological conditions, Parkinson's disease, multi-symptom atrophy, dementia, Shy-Dragger syndrome, and is also linked to anxiety, lower attention and executive functioning scores, and drug and alcohol withdrawals. So, so that could be, that one I was a little bit nervous of. So, other parasomnias, and pretty much just for a lack of time for you guys, I just kind of bulked this one together a little bit. But there's some other parasomnias is nightmares. That's pretty much when they have vivid dreams that cause fear, and these dreams are so vivid that you can actually recall them. In all honesty, I can even remember some dreams that I had when I was in actually 4th grade. I even know exactly when it was. But so some of them are very vivid that you can actually recall them in detail. Night terrors, they are not so much of a dream as they are where more of your body is pretty much in a terrified state. You cannot move, you cannot communicate. I'm not sure if any of you had dreams where you're like trying to scream and nothing comes out. Well, this is kind of like that, but in real life. When you wake up, you can't scream, you can't move, and you're kind of stuck there. Usually lasts for about 15 minutes or so. But the sleeper doesn't remember because this is all in their non-REM stage. Sleep paralysis is another one similar to that, basically when you can't really move. And that one there, it's not harmful or anything for you, but it's just unnerving because you just feel like you can't do anything about it. But a lot of times that's actually broken by sound or touch. A fun one is sleepwalking. It's more fun to witness than it is to actually be the object of it. Especially if it's your sibling, then it's awesome because then you can make fun of them the rest of your life. Just kidding. Not really. Okay, it usually happens in most kids from 8 to 12. And it's not really, despite popular belief, it's not really dangerous to wake them up. It's more dangerous when they are actually walking around and they can bump into things, they can get hurt. You know, different things can happen as far as that goes. So yeah, you might want to wake them up, but of course when you do, just don't be surprised if they start swinging or something just because they're so, I mean, how would you like it? You're laying in bed and all of a sudden, next thing you know, someone's waking you up in front of your face as you're standing somewhere else. A little bit disorienting. Confusion arousals, and this is what we were speaking of a little bit earlier, basically when you're waking up from a deep sleep and everything is just reactive very slowly. You know, it's you're sleeping, all of a sudden says, hey, wake up, we gotta, you're like, oh. That's pretty much what sleep arousal is. So, after seeing all this here, I kind of got a little bit more optimistic and a little bit more thankful that I don't really have any of these issues, that basically one person just has a simple routine and is not able to get some sleep or whatnot. It's not as bad as it is when somebody else has to actually try to go to sleep, but actually they're stuck in their own nightmare. Any questions?
Yes. Question. If you don't get the amount of sleep you need, how long does it take your body to recover and gain that back? Did any of that show that?
It didn't really show that a whole lot. What it was saying is that when you do go ahead and try to make sleep up, it doesn't really do a whole lot for you. But that's also just person by person.
What are there sleep disorders based on time they just missed it, like sleeping too much?
There are some, but I did not get into those. But yes, there are some.
Did the guy get convicted of killing his mother-in-law?
On that story, no, he was actually acquitted. But there's other story where they have been.
I've seen a couple of them, like, because I watched over 48 hour part of it.
Yeah, I saw one too.
I got a question.
Yeah, that's one
Hey,
I saw.
When did he wake up after he killed his mother-in-law? Was he over, or was he back at his house? Or was he sleeping on the couch there?
Yeah, he was actually at his parents' house.
Before you guys leave, there's detailed instructions about your final paper in your syllabus. Just make sure you read them. It's at least 6 pages.
Told you.
No more than 8, please.
No more than what?
8.
I promise
Shouldn't be
you.
a problem.
6 to 8.
That was.
I will grade the 8 pages and your reference page. That's, I won't go over.
That doesn't count, the reference page doesn't count.
No, I'll grade.
Quiz. And
Huh?
that blank one. Is there a quiz for next week?
There won't be a quiz next time, it's all presentations.
Take it easy. The one for your first one.
Whoops. I think I